Hello, my name is Benji and welcome to Dice vs Cards. Today we visit once again Arkham Horror the card game. Last week we brought you the first guide to the Guardians, giving an overview and critique of Roland Banks, Zoe Samaras and Mark Harrigan. But today it's time to give you the lowdown of the next three: Leo Anderson, Carolyn Fern and Tommy Muldoon, highlighting what makes them a special little snowflake. The Forgotten Age cycle's Leo Anderson is where things slowly started to get interesting, and when I mean interesting, I mean a bit different. A Guardian by virtue of being a leader is strongest when bringing allies to the table, but with only one native ally slot that becomes a bit trickier. Good job then that there are a few ways to get around this. Leo's stat line at first glance is really strong. Why do you need agility when you're combat oriented? That's true to a large extent, but with the most likely consequence of a failed agility test being the taking of damage, it's not ideal that he starts with only 8 health. His starting combat and willpower of 4 though does somewhat mitigate this inherent weakness, meaning he should be quite survivable indeed, especially when you consider the allies that he might be able to throw under the bus. Having a somewhat average intellect of 3 also means he is at least capable of doing some clue gathering, especially with flashlight in tow. His signature ability is great in isolation. Playing an ally as a free action for 1 buck less is value on a stick, but we've got to either turn over allies fast or find a way to leave more than one on the table. Charisma is an obvious include in a Mr. Anderson deck, and thankfully he has access to rogue cards who have some decent allies to supplement his pool of choices. His Elder Sign is all upside, although it would have been nice to be able to search more cards for an ally. His signature card, Mitch Brown, the only survivor from Leo's last expedition, is of course a way to push hard the theme of allies. The downside being that your available choices for an entourage are limited by not being able to bring any uniqueness. The problem is that relying on drawing Mitch will be too hit and miss, so you'll need to supplement him with the aforementioned charisma if you want to go this route. Thankfully his weakness, Bought in Blood, whilst debilitating, encourages generally low cost non-unique allies to be built into your deck. Don't get me wrong, if your only ally is Leo DeLuca or similar, then the tears will flow freely, but this is a weakness you just need to roll with. Having access to off-class rogue cards might seem counterintuitive given his abysmal agility, but when I say there are some godlike, general-centric rogue cards out there, I'm not joking, particularly the aforementioned Leo DeLuca, Lone Wolf and Sleight of Hand, that allow you to bend the game and take 4 actions for a net cost of 5, go big when playing solo, and synergistically do the same with big items by cheating them in and having impactful turns. When all's said and done, if you like Guardians doing what they do, and you like the flavour and theme of allies, then Leo is the choice for you. It's not as clear cut a game plan as with some other investigators because your allies can do different jobs, but solo is where Mr. Anderson excels. The rounded health and sanity, accompanied by all that damage soak you have at your disposal, make him ultra durable and gives him an A grade when leaving your mates at home. That's not to say he's that shabby in multiplayer either, warranting a B for his ability to take that modular approach and be flexible in deck building. Well, if you thought Leo was a teensy bit different, Carolyn Fern is without doubt the first atypical Guardian FFG released. Accompanying the Circle Undone cycle, the resident psychologist is rocking double the amount of intellect than combat and more sanity than health. Are you sure we're in the right class here? I call shenanigans. But you know what, this is what we needed. Something completely different and flipping the script on what a Guardian can be. The other unsettling thing about her stat line is that its combined total of 11 is to date the least you'll find on a Guardian, and we still haven't figured out why her intellect is 4. A perfect amount for, let's say, a Seeker to get their clue gathering on. Even her willpower is at best average. But why oh why are both our combat and agility sitting at 2, way below par to deal natively with anything enemy shaped. Okay, let's figure out why. Well, her ability doesn't necessarily make it much clearer, certainly pointing towards an investigator that plays more of a supporting role, dishing out loose change so long as there's horror to mend and a card to do the mending. But nowhere on her card does it say she's good with money or is independently wealthy. Nonetheless, you can theoretically see this throwing a lot of dough around. Her elder sign is of course lovingly synergistic, but with the randomness attached to drawing that token, it's only got so much going for it. Her signature card, Hypnotic Therapy, continues the horror healing trend, but when does too much of a good thing become too much of a good thing? Well, thankfully it doesn't take up a slot, and it does at least give a fairly reliable and reusable means of healing horror. And her weakness, rational thought, really does put the dampers on that fairly linear game plan, not only forcing you to deal with it, but also negating her dollar generating ability. I must say this investigator is not filling me with encouragement. Her off-class choices though, yes, this is where it's at, boys and girls. 15, count them, 15 Mystic and or Seeker cards up to level 1 can be placed in your deck. Oh my, this opens things up a bit, doesn't it? You can make her a Seeker in all but name with cards like Dr. Milan Christopher, Magnifying Glass and St. Hubert's Key, bringing intellect with resources, intellect on the fast, and intellect with willpower. Because why wouldn't you want a Guardian with 7 intellect going full Clue Gatherer? You can of course try and turn her into a fighter with Guard Dog and Beat Cop, bringing guaranteed damage, and I've got a plan fitting her like a glove. Be wary though, she only has access to up to level 3 Guardian cards and can't take weapons, so that'll definitely be a challenge making it work. No matter which way you swing it, it's a great thing having access to an investigator like Miss Fern, who deals with the horrors of Arkham like no other, and subverts what we've come to expect of a Guardian. Unfortunately, she doesn't warrant much more than a D if you're getting to the table solo, but she more than makes up for that in multiplayer, where she is absolutely stellar supporting other investigators, comfortably warranting an A for allowing others to do their thing, getting their spend on in the process. Things get somewhat back to the norm with Tommy Muldoon, introduced in the Dream Eaters cycle and born into a family of law enforcement officers. Tommy was initially taken back by all the horrors that Arkham presented, but this rookie officer has shown he can stand resolute against even the most macabre of threats. On the face of things, Tommy seems like a fairly conventional Guardian, but is there more to him than meets the eye? Well, in terms of stat lines, he's pretty generic, mirroring completely the first ever Guardian Roland Banks, but with 1 less health and 1 more sanity to even out his "oh crap, something bad just happened" endgame conditions. A suitably high combat and an average willpower and intellect lends itself to a competent solo campaigner, with the low agility proving only slightly more troublesome with Tommy's 8 starting health. His signature ability though is intriguing. Getting refunds from defeated assets and piling them back in your deck begs the question, how many cost-effective assets are there out there with comparatively high health and or sanity? Remember, that doesn't necessarily mean they have to be allies either. I can think of a few, that's for sure. It also begs the question, how quickly can I cycle through my deck to make the most of all this naughtiness? I like his elder sign a lot, or as much as you can like the all too infrequently drawn token. Transferring damage whilst feeding yourself in the long run sounds a little bit delish. His signature card Becky goes from meh to yes, I would like a cost effective, replenishable weapon of chaos and carnage the more you read it. +2 combat and +1 damage from a base 4 combat gives you the native means to tackle even the harder modes of play. The only difficulty being sequencing it appropriately to keep it topped up. You can't guarantee you'll necessarily be able to gung-ho from the get-go. His weakness, rookie mistake on the other hand, is a tempo stuffer if ever I saw one. But as usual with weaknesses, it can be game crippling or manageable depending on when you draw it. Either way, there's little way to mitigate against it except to keep piling assets back in your deck. Having access to off-class survivor cards up to level 2 lends itself to a come and get me approach, which is definitely synergistic. Cards like Jessica Hyde, Cherished Keepsake, and even the Red Gloved Man add some ready-made synergy that you can choose to keep around longer than your other assets, a Sanity Dork that gives you net resources, and a card that leaves you unencumbered by attacks of opportunity, laughing in the face of the core game mechanics. Tommy really does have a survivor's mentality, happy to play on the back foot and drag himself kicking and screaming to victory. In terms of solo viability, I'll give him a B. Ultimately because there are better solo Guardian options out there, and a similar story for multiplayer, where he deserves a solid B because of his high functioning all round nature. It's true I could have given him an A- in both categories by virtue of some tweaks to building his deck, but that's not how I roll, so a couple of B's it is. So there you have it, the next cycle of Guardians you could choose from. Things certainly got varied up a bit with this ragtag band. Now there's no excuse not to get creative and take your favourite Guardian for a stroll through Arkham. But for now, I hope you found this helpful, and I'll see you next time.